coming on to the next topic that deals with the corporate governance. See, an organization has to fulfill certain responsibilities. Since we already know that organization has certain stakeholders in the market. So what happens that every stakeholder organization is obligated to every stakeholders. So for that the organization has to be transparent enough. Right. So there are like corporate governance code that the organization needs to fulfill. So the corporate governance codes are the codes which are developed by the organization. This is with regard to a corporation, right? So corporate governance codes are the codes which is formulated by the organization to ensure the transparency or in the structure of the organization. As you know, as we have already discussed in the past, that okay, the agents or you can say the managers will be performing all the duties, and shareholders are the one who are putting their money in the organization, yet they are not supposed to take part in the decision making in the organization. If that happens, of course they'll take the decisions with respect to their own interest and avoid their interest, or stop keeping their interest into the mind, and they'll solely treat themselves as the decision makers, and therefore they'll keep prioritizing their own interest in relation to the or in respect to the interest of the shareholders. So will that be viable for the organization? No, because organization exists to keep the shareholder interest into the mind. The basics objective, or you can say the basic purpose of the organization, is to keep the shareholder interest into the mind. Now as a manager, you may not may come to the certain position where of course you'll have to, there are some conflicting interest between the manager and the shareholders, and you need to keep your interest in priority. So to avoid that sort of a conflict in the decision making process, in the board, who is taking decisions for a company, corporation, the board of directors is taking the decision for an organization. So they have developed some codes for this management team so that they could also represent the shareholder and manager's interest. You need to take their interest into the mind because they have put their money into the organization, right? So the corporate governance codes are some codes which are given by the respective laws to make sure that their interest is kept in priority, or their interest is not fully ignored in the organization. First of all, is this clear? Then, now, what happens under corporate governance? What do we do? What are the rules of those corporate governance? They say in the decision making board, at least 50% should be non-executive director. Now, who are non-executive director? The director who represents the shareholders are regarded as non-executive director. So the corporate governance codes have been developed to ensure the transparency in the business organization. And these codes states that at least half of the board should be non-executive director, so that shareholder interest could be kept in the mind. Then they say that the role of CEO and chairman should be different. CEO is the company executive officer. He is doing all the activities in the organization, while chairman is the person who is the head of this meeting, head of this board. So of course he's given the veto power and everything. So he is the main decision making authority. So they say separate the role. The person who is doing the task and person who is taking the decision with respect to entity, they should be different. So first corporate governance rule or first rule of corporate governance is that at least 50% should be non-executive director in the board. Second corporate governance principle is separate the roles of CEO and chairman. Third corporate governance objective is that since these are the decision making they have the decision making powers. Now these persons should not be elected according to their own policies. So there should be nomination committee, there should be a remuneration committee developed in the organization to take part in the day-to-day decision making of the organization. So main corporate governance codes you have to keep into the mind. Believe me, if you write this 5 corporate governance code, that is all the examiner needs to know. So first corporate governance role, at least 50% should be non-executive director in the board. There should be separation of the roles of CEO and chairman. There should be formulation of nomination committee. Nomination committee will be responsible for the appointment of these directors. There should be formulation of the remuneration committee. They will be responsible for providing remuneration. And then there should be formulation of audit committee, will be responsible for conducting audits in an organization. So these are main 5 corporate governance code, which as a company you need to take into consideration when formulating a strategy for the organization. Now coming on to the last topic of this chapter, that basically deals with the non-for-profit organization. Of course, we already know that there are 2 types of an organization. One is the profit-making organization. Another type of organization we have is a non-profit-making organization. So not-for-profit organization is an organization which has an objective of not of profitability making. It has an objective of not-for-profit. So now the factors influencing the not-for-profit organization. So under this, we have to see that most of the not-for-profit organization have the government influence in it. So for non-for-profit organizations, since their objective is not profitability, what their objective is to satisfy the needs of their members, or to fulfill the objective that they have for which this particular organization has been developed. So of course these non-for-profit organization has to keep into mind the interest of the different stakeholders. They have to see how much is the response involved. So of course they have to fulfill their objective is not profit making. So the question arises that they have to fulfill the given objective they have set. Now how shall we measure that how much this entity has been able to achieve over the period of time? So what are the performance measurement techniques for not-for-profit making organization? So there is a concept which is known as value for money. So value for money is a concept which takes into account the objectives of not-for-profit organization. So value for money has 3 objectives under it. First is economy, then we have efficiency, then we have effectiveness. Economy ensures that inputs shall be obtained at a lesser cost. Efficiency ensures that there should be minimum inputs used to produce the maximum outputs. And effectiveness ensures that overall objectives of the organization could be achieved. So we have economy. Economy is to make sure, the objective of economy is to make sure that the raw materials are available at a lesser cost. Efficiency ensures that the minimum input is used to produce the maximum output for the organization. While effectiveness ensures that overall objectives of the organization could be achieved.